Hello everyone, you're on the Manhwa Vibes channel. Are you ready? Let's go. Meet this girl's name is Lisa Johnson. Right now she's taking a shower and she's in a great mood. There's no one here, not a sound. She really likes this kind of environment when she's at home. Lisa knew that taking a shower at lunchtime was the best solution. The summer annoys her a lot because of how much she sweats. She took a towel to wipe herself off. After that, Lisa Johnson decided to leave the bathroom. At that moment, someone dials the code of the front door to get through. Oh my god. She didn't see that coming. Who is it? The guy stopped for a moment and only looked at Lisa. Lisa, I think you'd better get dressed now. She is shocked as she didn't expect to see anyone here. The guy comes closer and closer to Lisa, but she runs away, slamming the door behind her. She doesn't realize, who is he? A hooligan? A thief? Did he come in or did he go out? Lisa is startled and picks up the plunger. If he dares to approach her, he'll regret it. What's going on? Lisa came home to wash up since she had some free time, but she can't even change her clothes properly. Looking out a little, Lisa asked who's here. It turned out to be Edward. He is Kevin's friend. Lisa remembered that Kevin had never had a friend like Edward. Edward asked her if she remembered him. Lisa replied that she didn't remember him, especially if he was a thief or a bully. Edward merely smiled sweetly. Oh, Lisa seemed to remember who it was. It's you, she replied. Edward was surprised that after they had separated they had met again. And the mishap happened again. A few years ago, little Edward also saw something. Even though it's been 12 years now, but Lisa will never forget the last memory with that child. In fact, she's very ashamed of it. What the hell kind of fate is this? Although no, Lisa doesn't even think it's fate. She said her brother Kevin isn't home, her parents are at work and she's here alone. In fact, Edward came over because he had something he needed to do. He walked further across the room and rushes into another room. Lisa is not quite sure what he is going to do. Perhaps he's looking for something. By the way, what happened to him? Lisa remembers that he used to be handsome like a sweet little boy. But now she thinks he's turned into a real man. More like an attractive man. It's been over a decade and it's normal for him to change. Lisa asked Edward if he needed anything. She warned him that no one was here at noon. Very suspicious. How on earth would he know the password to the front door? Edward told her that his overseas package that Kevin had gotten for him was here. He told Edward that the package was in his room. Now it made sense to Lisa. It was all her brother Kevin's fault. Lisa told him that she had to go to the office now since she had left lunch. She asked Edward if she could find her package on her own. He asked a counter question and asked if she trusted him. Lisa has no idea what he's talking about. Edward picked up on the fact that Lisa had changed a lot. Smiling, she took it as a compliment. Edward doesn't know if he can say that, but Lisa has become more attractive. He said with conviction that he would try to find her package quickly and she could go to work in peace. Lisa believed his words and was glad that everything was resolved well. Edward told her that he would be moving into the neighboring apartment tomorrow. This information shocked Lisa. Edward thought she knew about it because it was Kevin who had told him that the neighboring apartment was vacant. She really didn't know. Anyway, Lisa suggested that they get along with each other. Really, she had a bad feeling about it. Wonder why? Smiling, she noted that they were neighbors now. It didn't matter much, though, since Lisa was getting married soon and moving out of this house. But Edward is not aware of that yet. Lisa is only worried about Edward's problems before she leaves the house. A little later, Lisa returned to her workplace at the company office. She worked hard on the reports and sent them to her supervisor for review. Lisa finally finished her work and now she can distract herself for a few minutes. She's texting with her boyfriend, whose name is Richard. Lisa asks him if he's awake. She wants to talk through some issues about their wedding. Lisa is upset that he hasn't even read her messages. She feels as if she is the only one getting married and the only one who needs it. Lisa put her phone aside and closed her eyes for a moment. Haha, her patience wasn't going to last long. Even though she felt that sending another message after an unread one would hit her pride, but if she didn't write it now, she would simply forget it later. In the message, Lisa wrote that it would be a good idea to take pictures during the honeymoon instead of the usual boring studio photo shoot. Lisa is eagerly waiting for a response from Richard. After all, it is very important for her, as it is for any girl getting married. It looks like he answered something, which didn't make Lisa very happy. A very strange response from Richard. Really? I love you too? This was clearly not the response Lisa expected from him. But she ended up texting him that she loved him too. Anyway, Lisa hadn't heard the word love in a long time. The heart smiley face hasn't been popular in like 3 years. She even thought about the fact that she may have gotten the message Richard sent her earlier. No, still she thought it was impossible. What surprised and even worried her was that he had written the words I love you too, even though she was the first one to not write I love you to him. So why did he send it? Lisa's coworker suggested a music show in which singers and musicians give street performances abroad. Boss Maureen Haley thinks it's a bad idea that's doomed to fail. Susie just wants to get attention. At this moment in Lisa's head are completely different thoughts, which are clearly not related to work. She tries to think good thoughts about Richard, but there is clearly something wrong with him. Maureen Haley admonishes Lisa for not being involved in the process of coming up with the show, especially since Lisa is the person in charge of the event. Lisa was not confused and offered to promote the composer since he is known internationally, and more so since the main contestants are not experienced actors. Maureen Haley generally liked the idea, but there are certain nuances. The final part of the show hasn't been filmed and the music hasn't been released either. Are they taking their time with it? She doesn't know how good the music by composer Johnny Khan is. Lisa said that most of the teenagers recognize him because Mr. Johnny Khan is more popular among them as a great composer. He is known as an eccentric musical genius in Europe and America. Susie liked Lisa's idea incredibly well, especially since he's Korean and it would be wonderful if they used his looks. Maureen Haley asked Lisa if she knew how she could get in touch with Johnny Kang. She replied that she heard from the production company. Johnny Khan agreed to participate in our project because he is close to the director. Maureen Haley recalled that a project start has an extra shoot today. Must be Johnny Khan is in America right now. It turns out that he has to come to the filming location. The supervisor looked at Lisa and signaled with her gaze that she hoped Lisa could handle everything. Lisa replied that she would try to contact him. Wow, this might not be an easy job for Lisa. Great weather outside. Just like something to daydream about. Lisa has no idea how she'd live without coffee. Yes, coffee is a real lifesaver for office workers. Susie asked Lisa if she had any spectacular way to contact Johnny Khan. She replied, no, but she would need to think about it. Susie admitted that she knew it would be like this. She realizes that Lisa had been hovering in the clouds and didn't know what to say, which is why she brought up Johnny Khan. It turns out that Susie is a fan of his and she knows that Johnny Khan has never participated in an interview. Ever. Lisa is confident in her abilities and she owes it to herself to complete this assignment. At least she should at least give it a try. Susie remembers that Lisa was upset about something. What was it? Lisa admitted that she was actually upset. Susie suggested that letting go of the situation would make her feel better. Without further ado, Lisa simply held out the phone for Susie to see for herself what the problem was. Susie took the phone in her hand and read the correspondence. She saw that Richard had stopped at this message and hadn't even called. Susie thinks that apparently Richard wants to break up with Lisa. She warned Lisa that he'll probably text soon about why he's having this behavior, so she should be prepared to answer him. Otherwise, Lisa will regret it. Susie was honest, but should friends be like that in these situations? In any case, Lisa likes Susie for her straightforwardness. She doesn't hold back the truth like children do. That's why Lisa likes it even more. Moving on to one of the town cafes. It's Richard, Lisa's boyfriend, and he's not very cheerful. Lisa's waiting to see what he's gonna say to her. But he's in no hurry to say anything. Lisa thought he'd at least give her some excuse when he got here. After a couple minutes, he replied that he had something to say to Lisa. Oh, what exactly does he have to say to her? Lisa was a little startled out of surprise. He said he had no feelings for her. It was hard for Richard to say it, but it had to be done. What's interesting is that he doesn't want to end the relationship and wants to marry Lisa. Richard admitted that he found a girl who makes his heart beat more often. However, he still wants to marry Lisa. Lisa thinks he's a psycho, a crazy lunatic. Richard proposes marriage as planned. Since the wedding is 4 months away, he will date the girl he likes for exactly 3 months. So Lisa can date other guys for those 3 months. Then they will forget about the people they dated. Lisa is outraged by this proposal and asked Richard to shut his mouth as it is all nonsense. Richard can't answer that now. No, he won't answer it later either. Lisa thinks it's his problem if he's going to live with that kind of guilt. Lisa gets up and walks out of the cafe as she thinks Richard's suggestion is incredibly stupid. It's a play on Lisa's feelings. She is hurt that Richard has behaved this way with her. Even if the heavens collapse, life goes on. Lisa's life goes on because of Joni Khan. Lisa needed to find the composer's contacts and she succeeded. But she had a hard time because of it, but she did get Joni Khan's email address. In the letter, Lisa wrote that she was the deputy head of the company WIB, responsible for the promotion of the TV show Start. She asks for Johnny Khan's help, but first of all she sends this letter as his fan after watching all the projects. Well, it seems to be written concisely and to the point. But Lisa didn't quite like it and thinks that she needs to change the text a bit. She wants to add something at the end of the text. Now Lisa thinks that the text is perfectly written. She adds at the end that if Joni Khan doesn't read this letter, harsh criticism and collapse will fall on him. Lisa, come on, I don't think you're seriously sending this to the composer. Lisa realizes that she is not focused on the work. Several thoughts come into her head that she can't say. She's really not thinking about work right now, but about Richard calling himself a man by dumping the girl he's marrying and ending up cheating on her. And then he says he's going to date another girl for 3 months. How can he call himself human after that? Lisa is furious just thinking about Richard. She thinks he's no different from an animal. No, he's even worse than some asshole. At that moment, Susie crept up unnoticed from behind. She wondered what that evil smirk was on Lisa's face. Lisa didn't expect Susie to come up to her right now. She needs to delete the email. All it takes is a quick press of a button. Lisa, you accidentally hit the wrong button. Oh, the message has been delivered to Joni Khan. Oh, my God. I set myself up. A few minutes later, Lisa sends another message apologizing for the previous email because she sent it by mistake. Lisa asks to ignore it, but she has something to discuss with him anyway. It's about promoting the movie. At the end, Lisa wrote about asking him to save her life and asks him to answer her as soon as possible. Susie was surprised by the phrase "save my life." Lisa figures that if she writes like that, she's sure Johnny Khan won't read the previous message unless he's a total creep. Her pride is the last thing on her mind right now. Susie suggested she doesn't care about that and calls for a cup of coffee. She's paying for it, by the way. Lisa doesn't want to drink coffee, she needs something stronger right now. A little while later they go into a local bar. At first they chatted without touching on serious topics. Susie drank a shot of the burning drink. At that moment Lisa burst into tears remembering Richard. Susie asked her to stop crying over someone cheating on her. Ataka, how pathetic it looks. Lisa started crying even harder and talks about how she knows she is terribly pathetic. She doesn't even have the courage to leave him. Susie is uncomfortable in front of the bar patrons as everyone is staring at them. Lisa doesn't want everyone to see her drunk out of her mind tonight. Susie adds that it is Richard who is pathetic, but not Lisa. Lisa asked Susie if she knew what her goal was. Susie replied, yes, to get married. Yes, that was actually her dream. Lisa reflected on the fact that if she breaks up with Richard now, how long will it take her to meet another guy again, date him and marry him? Susie wondered how that could even be a goal in life. Does Lisa want to be just another wife with postpartum depression who is forever alone fiddling with a baby? That's the quickest way to ruin your life. But Lisa really wants to get married. Susie thinks there's no point in convincing a drunk girl. Let her do as she pleases. Anyway, they need to talk about real things too, not just dreams. What exactly does Lisa want from Richard? Lisa wants him to regret it with all his heart and soul. She wants him to cry bloody tears. Whether she breaks up with him or not, she'll decide later. She wants him to come back to her after all this. Like nothing happened. Susie says there's only one way to do it then. You have to make him jealous. Take him up on his offer. Lisa was indignant. Take him up on his stupid offer. Yes, we need Lisa to start dating another guy. She needs to find someone definitely better than Richard. She needs a replacement guy. Lisa was surprised. Really? A replacement boyfriend? That's right. You know, like in melodramas. This is the surest way to make a man burn with jealousy. Make him feel like you're not the Lisa he's known for 7 years. Make him feel like a total stranger, like that day. And he'll be shocked when he finds out Lisa is dating someone much better than him. Someone super cool. Then he'll either grab her hand, pull her back, or fall to his knees and beg for forgiveness. Lisa is convinced that Susie should have gone into screenwriting instead of movie commercials. Susie has a friend who is a model. She suggests asking him about potential candidates. Lisa is against it, as she doesn't want the whole world to know about it. Well, then Susie can ask her boyfriend to arrange a blind date for Lisa. Susie seems to be really amused by this. Anyway, it would have to be someone who would be a much better match than Richard. He'd have to be younger than Richard, with a great job and a super cool education. And definitely prettier than him. Oh, looks like Lisa's passed out. She must have had too much to drink. Damn. This happens every time she drinks. Susie called Kevin and told him his sister had passed out again. She asked him to come and get her. A short time later, Kevin's brother arrived. He said hello to Susie. Kevin saw the condition Lisa was in and realized that she must have had a lot to drink. Susie said that she fell asleep just as she was calling Kevin. She wondered who he had arrived with. Who was his friend? Kevin introduced Edward to Susie. It seemed to Susie that Edward didn't seem like a bad guy. Was that it? Susie thought handsome guys were so aloof. Edward took Lisa in his arms. He told Kevin that he could carry Lisa to the cab. Susie doesn't understand why her heart is beating so hard. But one thing she knows for sure is that if Lisa chooses a man to carry her, Richard will definitely freak out. Edward said goodbye to Susie and said they were off. She wished them a good trip. The next day at work, Susie watches Lisa bang her head on her desk and asked her to stop doing that since her desk is not a drum. Susie once again asks her to stop banging her head and just talk about what Lisa did yesterday. Lisa only remembers scraps of it, but yesterday, she threw up. Then she started hitting the person carrying her. Lisa cried and hugged a telephone pole and even used a fire extinguisher. Haha, so much for that. Susie hopes Edward didn't see that. Lisa is puzzled as to how on earth Susie knows Edward. Susie tells her that Edward came with Kevin yesterday to pick up Lisa. Oh my God. Lisa looks like she's ready to fall through the floor. She's so ashamed. She remembers some of the moments from last night. Lisa also remembered the way Edward looked at her. He never took his eyes off of her. Lisa remembers the way he touched her. What should Lisa do now? She even blushed. Susie thinks that no matter what, Lisa should ask him. But ask for what? To ask to become Edward's replacement boyfriend for Richard. Lisa coldly replies that actually Edward is her little brother's friend. Susie asked Lisa to imagine what it would be like to walk with Edward hand in front of Richard. He would just freak out. Lisa thought for a moment. Susie noticed Lisa's hesitation, but Lisa asked her to forget it, since she had done a lot of things yesterday and Edward had seen it all. Lisa said to close this topic and she needs to check her email. Alright, let's see if our composer Joni Khan has replied to her. Lisa goes into her email. Susie is also very interested. Oh, I think there's one new email. Apparently Joni Khan has responded to Lisa. Susie asks to open the email as soon as possible. He replied that he does not give interviews or make public appearances for commercial purposes. Joni Khan understands Lisa's situation, but if her life is in danger, he recommended going to the police. Lastly, he gave a piece of advice. They say everyone has 3 hard knocks in life. This is your second. You can take comfort in the fact that you only have one left. So the first blow was from her boyfriend, and the second blow was Joni Khan's rejection. Susie started laughing out loud. Lisa told her to stop laughing. Susie wondered if Lisa would stop there. Lisa stated that she would not stop. Yes, she may have had a failure on the love front, but she would not allow a failure at work. Because of Richard's jerk of a boyfriend, Lisa has neglected work lately. She needs to stop drinking and focus. Susie recommended changing her approach to everything starting tomorrow. Since they're having a sit-down tonight, Lisa asked Susie to keep an eye on her. That's her assignment for today. After work, the company employees went to the bar to relax. Susie tried to stop Lisa, but to no avail. If she gets drunk like last night, it will be her own fault. All her coworker does is pour her a drink. Damn it. I think Lisa's gonna regret this again. Is she asleep? Susie regretted taking a deep breath because there was nothing she could do. Susie thinks that Lisa has had enough of socializing today. She decided to take her home after warning her coworker. Susie had no idea that because of Lisa's habit of getting drunk, she too would have to leave the corporate party. She had no choice but to call Kevin again. Susie informs him that his sister has passed out again and she needs his help, since she can't do anything without him. Lisa seems to be starting to come around. She noticed someone. A man approached them. Oh, it's Edward. What's he doing here? Lisa was shocked to see him. But she was even more shocked that Edward would see her like this again. Susie called Kevin, but Edward came to pick Lisa up instead. He came specifically to pick her up. Edward told Lisa to get in the car, he would take her home. Susie lastly wished her a good trip. They are driving home and stopped at a stoplight. Lisa doesn't say a word, just sits silently. She only gives a careful glance in Edward's direction. He notices this and says she can look at him. No need to squint like a crazy person. Lisa felt embarrassed. Edward asked Lisa if she knew she was contentedly pretty. He wondered what she thought. Lisa didn't get the point. She thinks that Edward thinks the same thing about herself. Edward only smiled slightly when he heard this answer from Lisa. He asked her, he was quite attractive to girls, wasn't he? Lisa just laughed stupidly. That was a strange reaction. Edward told her that she could look at him whenever she wanted. Lisa didn't understand what he meant by that. Edward feels like he owes her. Well, because of what he saw. He is referring to that very incident. Edward saw a lot of interesting and racy things then. Haha, Lisa got embarrassed and blushed. Edward thinks it was like an accident. It wasn't a setup or anything. And it was also remembered as an accident. Lisa didn't understand the word remembered. Edward means in a good way. What is he talking about? Lisa will never understand what he means. At that moment, a message came on Lisa's phone. She opened the messenger. It turned out to be Richard. He asked Lisa what she had decided. They drove up to Lisa's house. Edward told her that they had arrived already. But it was as if she couldn't hear. Lisa didn't answer for a while, but eventually asked Edward about what he said he owed her, right? He doesn't understand what she means. Lisa asked if he wanted to pay her back. She suggested that Edward go out for a drink. A few days earlier. The door clicked. Edward walked out of the bathroom. Walked down the hall. Walked into one of the rooms of the house. He walked over to the piano. He sat on a chair drinking coffee. Edward opened his email on his computer. Oh, there were 2 emails from Lisa. Then he was very surprised that she had written to him. Back to our time. They ended up going into a cafe to eat and drink. She talked about her request. Edward asked her to repeat it again. You could see that she was nervous. Unsure with a shaky voice, Lisa asked Edward again if he could be her surrogate lover. He thought that was rather odd. Lisa frankly said that her fiancé cheated on her and yet he wants to date another girl for all 3 months before their wedding. What's more, he wants Lisa to date as well. With someone else. Edward asked, and that's me? In agreement, Lisa nodded her head. Yeah, but not for real. They'll just pretend. So Edward will be her surrogate lover. Edward doesn't understand why she chose him. Lisa wants that creep Richard to be in as much pain as she is. Remembering how much she hates Richard, Lisa squeezed her drink mug hard. Lisa wants Richard to really regret what he did and how much pain he caused her. Edward thought it was too despicable. But Lisa has no other choice. That's the way it is, love. Lisa once again reminded Edward of what he had told her earlier. He told Lisa that he owed her. Edward asked Lisa to stop being a child. Lisa slammed her fists on the table with anger and asked why. Why do you think it's like this isn't a problem at all and play games? To her, this is a problem of intergalactic proportions and she is very angry at Edward for not supporting her. Wow, Lisa got really hot for some reason and decided to get naked. I'd even say she got too hot. Edward tries to stop Lisa. You don't have to take your clothes off. He squeezed Lisa's hands with his own. Lisa thought it was cute. It was like she was handcuffed. Edward put his arm around Lisa's shoulder. She was too drunk and he suggested we go home. Lisa rebelled and asked Edward to get off of her. She stated that she wasn't drunk at all. Edward begs Lisa to stop acting like this. He takes a deep breath as he is tired of Lisa's crankiness. Edward wondered how much longer she was going to go crazy. He loudly told Lisa that he was not her boyfriend. He squeezed her shoulder and added that he wasn't a piece of shit. At this point, Lisa went quiet. Oh, Lisa, what are you doing? She almost punched Edward. You can expect anything from drunk girls. It looked like she was about to fall asleep. At that moment, Edward remembered the email he had written on behalf of the composer. He had purposely replied to her in a very rude manner. But she wouldn't give up. What was Lisa up to? Edward picked her up and carried her home. It actually looks so cute. Edward doesn't know why, but he likes her tantrums. The next day morning at Lisa's apartment. It's almost 10 o'clock in the morning on the clock. Lisa is kicking her legs slightly. She is resting after an eventful day yesterday. Lisa starts blinking her sleepy eyes. Oh my god, she jumped up because she remembered something. Lisa's first immediate thought was to look at her watch. Oh, looks like she was late. Lisa quickly got out of bed. For a moment she froze in place. Relax, Lisa, it's Saturday and you don't have to go to work. All the urgent things at work she had already done, so this weekend she could just lay back and relax. Lisa jumped up so abruptly that she even felt dizzy. She started to feel nauseous. Lisa thought about how much she drank last night. She remembered that she had been with Edward last night. She also remembered that she had behaved inappropriately yesterday. Lisa had punched and kicked Edward yesterday. She walked out of her room. She sat down at the table to eat breakfast. On the table is the food her mom made. Her sprouted bean soup is the best thing for a hangover. Her mom told Lisa to stop drinking. She also has to buy Edward lunch. A mom is sure he had a hard time dragging Lisa home yesterday. Lisa replied, "Okay." Mom looked at her daughter with a displeased face. She decided to ask Lisa, how long will she live like this? Mom was very dissatisfied with her daughter's lifestyle. The mother was angry and her father came to her daughter's defense. She told him that she had been very embarrassed for her daughter when Edward had dragged Lisa on his back yesterday. Mom took a deep breath and asked Lisa, how could she? Lisa went to do the dishes to help her mom, and to redeem herself in some way. She washed all the dishes and sat down on the couch next to her dad. Daddy whispered quietly in Lisa's ear that when she makes mommy angry, it's hard on him too. She wasted everyone around her, including Daddy. Lisa understood and would try to keep that in mind in the future. Daddy asked, "How are things going with the wedding? Is Richard helping her?" Dad remembers that Lisa told him that she and Richard would take care of everything on their own, but Dad is a little worried. A mom heard what they were talking about and yelled that they should let them handle it themselves. Dad heard that it's fashionable to have small weddings nowadays. Had her parents known that the wedding was on the verge of going off the rails? Lisa asked her mom where her brother was. Is he still on the set? Her mom replied that he was in the apartment across the hall helping Edward unpack. They'd been friends for so many years, and they were still the same. No wonder they're best friends. Kevin previously stayed with Edward when he was studying abroad. His mom says that Edward has done a lot for Kevin, and now Kevin helps him in any way he can. By the way, Mom asked Lisa to get Kevin and Edward over here. Since Mom hasn't met them properly yet, they should at least invite Edward over for dinner. Lisa doesn't think he doesn't need to be greeted properly at all. A mom is not happy with her daughter's behavior. But Lisa agrees that it's a good idea, so as not to make her mom angry. Lisa will call them quickly. She thinks about how she can stop her mom. After all, she always liked Edward. Lisa rings the bell and waited a little while. And afterward, she heard Edward ask who's there. He always has such a beautiful voice. Lisa answered, "It's me." Edward asked, "Who is it?" "Yeah, Lisa, your neighbor." Edward opened the front door. They came face to face. He stares at her without taking his gaze off her. Lisa blushed and hesitated. She thought about how handsome he is, even too handsome. Edward doesn't understand why Lisa is knocking on his door and is silent. At this point, Lisa shoves the wrong thoughts away from her and shakes herself. She tries to gather her will in her fist and tell him what she came here for. Lisa asks where is Kevin. He replies that Kevin is not here. Lisa wasn't prepared for that. Edward explained that Kevin had gotten a call that he needed to do something urgently. Oh, that awkward pause. Are they just going to continue to stand there in silence? Edward said Lisa. She answered, huh. What? He wondered if Lisa had nothing to say to him. She replied, no. At that moment, Lisa flinched. Edward asked her if she wanted to apologize. Lisa apologized to him. But there's a but. But? What's the but? She took his hand. Oh, surprise. Lisa begs him to be her temporary lover. She knows how shameless that is. Yes, Lisa realizes it probably looks ridiculous. She remembers what Richard told her when they met at the cafe. About Richard liking another girl. Lisa begs Edward to help her for the umpteenth time. She has high hopes for him. Edward takes Lisa's hand away and suggests that we go to his apartment first. Yes, of course, she agrees. Edward pulled her away and pushes her against the wall. He asks Lisa what she's doing. If he agrees, they have to start dating for real. What? Elise is surprised. She's not ready for that. Lisa asks Edward to stop talking nonsense. But why? Edward doesn't understand. Why the nonsense? What does it all mean? Edward continues to hold her hands. Lisa didn't like it, so she slapped him. Lisa says he got it for yesterday. It's that moment when you want to get angry but can't because you're also at fault. Looks like he was kidding. Isn't he? Well, I don't know. Anyway, he said that yes, it was a joke. Edward also said that it would be just wild. Hearing those words, Lisa was upset. But she replied to him that it was okay. She is glad that they have a deal. He never loses. She would have liked to see it though, since Lisa decided to be completely shameless today. She asked Edward, so does that mean he agreed to be her boyfriend? He wondered why she had chosen him. Lisa sat down next to him on the couch and said it was because he was cool. No reaction from Edward. Lisa doesn't understand. Is something wrong? She begs him for the billionth time to help her for her sake. Edward, come on. Let your good looks do Lisa some good. Just look into those eyes. Lisa is like the cat in the boots from Shrek. A very sweet girl. Lisa really hopes that he will help her. Edward keeps looking into her eyes. And then he says, Lisa, I won't agree to this no matter how much you ask. And asked her to leave his apartment. Lisa is shocked, seriously. Edward's reasoning for this decision is that he worked late last night and was very tired. He asks her if that's the only reason she came to him. Yes, but Lisa said that Mom and Dad had told him to invite him over for dinner, a little celebration of her and Kevin's arrival. Edward agrees to come, of course, but he's going to change first. Lisa thinks about Edward being so old-fashioned. Why doesn't he at least give it a try? She looks around and notices that this apartment is the same as theirs in both size and layout, but there's a completely different atmosphere here. The door creaked open. Lisa stepped closer. She peeked into another room. Lisa seemed to notice something. Edward saw Lisa peek into the room and asked her what she was doing here. He wondered why she looked into this room. Edward waits for her to explain. Lisa is a little confused and doesn't know what to answer. She was just sitting there, looking around, and noticed the music equipment. She apologized to Edward. She should have been quieter. He replied that it was just his hobby and asked her to leave the room. Edward looked around the room and closed the door. A few minutes later they arrived at Lisa and Kevin's parents' house. Mom wonders if he's really Edward. She doesn't understand. When did he get so handsome? If she had met him on the street, she wouldn't have recognized him. Edward complimented Lisa's mom on how beautiful she always looked. Oh wow, what a sweet-talking man he was. Mom thanked Edward for helping Kevin when he was studying abroad. Unfortunately, she and her husband couldn't take care of Kevin properly when they sent him off to study. Edward replied that there was no need to thank him. Kevin was helping him, too, saving him from loneliness. Mom told Lisa to look at Edward and see how handsome and mature he was. You'd think he'd be the one in the family, not Lisa. Lisa doesn't understand how Edward can act so innocent and right. Lisa's dad asked Edward if he lived alone in England, too, right? He said yes. Edward said that his dad was a lecturer in London, but his mom never stayed in one place. She was always on tour or giving master classes. So you could say she lived in hotels most of the time. Apparently Edward was lonely because of that. It was always like that, so he was used to it from childhood. In fact, it was what allowed him to make all kinds of friends. Lisa thought that when he was growing up, he didn't need anything. But she didn't really know that's how he grew up. Lisa's dad asked Edward if he had studied economics. Yes, he had studied economics at the University of London. He also asked if Edward practiced music. After all, when he was little, he played the piano very well. And he won all the competitions. Edward replied that it was temporary, just a hobby. Lisa thinks they are so digging into his whole life. At this point, her phone rings. She hopes her parents remember that their child is me, not him. Lisa said, "Hello?" The phone told her verbatim, "I'm outside your house right now. Come out for a minute. I want to talk to you." It sounded like it was Richard calling. Lisa wasn't expecting his call. She asked him why he was here. Edward took notice. Mom asked Lisa, "Did Richard call?" Lisa was a little scared as she doesn't know how to get out of this situation properly. No. I mean, yes. Mom didn't understand, did he or didn't he call? Lisa said she'd be right back. Mom told her that if it was Richard, she should just invite him in. Lisa thought about it some more and decided to say that it wasn't Richard. It was someone else. She warned her mom that she would be out for a few minutes. Edward doesn't quite know what's going on. Standing in the parking lot outside his car was Richard, who was waiting for Lisa. She took the elevator down to him. He told Lisa that he couldn't reach her. Lisa looked around and took a deep breath. She had thought so much about their relationship. But did it make any sense at all? Richard had only come to say one thing. And before Lisa leaves, there's something she needs to know. Richard doesn't want to break up with Lisa. Lisa bluntly tells him that he still doesn't want her for anything either. Richard doesn't think it's a bad option for her either. He wants them to treat it as their last gift to each other before they get married. Lisa pulls Richard's hand away and angrily tells him that he is turning her into the most pathetic creature on the planet. She asked him if he wanted to know her answer. Lisa emotionally told Richard that she hated him and she hated that woman too. Oh my God. Edward has been eavesdropping on their conversation the whole time. He can hear Lisa telling Richard that it pisses her off that she's become so pathetic because of him. Richard squeezed Lisa's hand with his own. Lisa didn't like that. She reiterated to Richard that she didn't like him. Richard tries to make up for the situation somehow. But at that moment, Edward walks up to them. Lisa is shocked as she didn't expect to see him here. Apparently Edward has something to say to Richard. Richard doesn't know who it is yet. Lisa asks Edward what he is doing here. Richard asked Lisa who it is. She replied that it's none of his business. The men exchanged a glance. Richard told Edward that he was Lisa's boyfriend and extended his hand in greeting. Lisa doesn't realize what's going to happen next. Richard wants to ask Edward something, but Lisa is against it. Still, he asked Edward, how does he know Lisa? The men shook hands. Lisa intervened in the conversation and said that Edward is her brother's friend. Lisa asked Edward if perhaps he was going somewhere. He replied that he had something he needed to do. Edward told Lisa to go home and finish her lunch since her mom was expecting her. Lisa replied, "Right, thank you." Lisa and Edward said goodbye and he left. Richard stepped closer to Lisa. Grabbing her hand, he asked her, "This creep, is he just Kevin's friend and that's it?" Lisa reiterated that it's none of his business. It's important for Richard to know if Lisa accepts his proposal, since she still hasn't given him an answer. Lisa asked Richard about the woman who makes his heart flutter. How did he meet her? He met her at work. Lisa doesn't want to talk to Richard anymore. She told him to go home and just wait. She turns around and leaves, but Richard yells at her that he can't leave her. But if Lisa does leave him? At this point, Richard clenched his fist and said he would let her go forever. He told her goodbye and left. Walking home, Lisa thinks about Richard's phrase, "I'll let you go." Tearfully, she thinks about how can she leave him. Eventually, Lisa will become an ex. Lisa crouches down in the parking lot and starts crying in choked-up tears. She thinks about what a jerk Richard is. Yeah, that's the trouble with girls. Edward walks up to her at that moment. He sees that Lisa is in tears. She asks him not to tell her to stop crying and stuff like that. Edward tells her to stop crying. Lisa became indignant as she asked him not to say that to her. Edward replied, "I will. I will make that guy cry and regret everything he has done to you." He is willing to pretend to be Lisa's boyfriend. Lisa doesn't understand why he would agree. It's simple. Edward doesn't like it when Lisa cries. Lisa is quite touched. Edward also says that when Lisa cries, she is just ugly. Lisa feels as if Edward has a new hobby of making fun of her. He thinks they can talk about it later. Edward means the whole thing about the temporary boyfriend thing. Right now, he really needs to go and do something. Edward turns his head in her direction and advises Lisa to get better prepared. Since he's going into this, he's going to do it on the highest level, that is, the right way. What? Lisa is perplexed. She thinks it's very uncivilized of him. The next day at Edward's work, his coworker comes up to him and asks him what Edward thinks about this. Yes, that's exactly what he wanted to see in the script. But Edward would have added some more emotion with the music, and in the love scenes he would have added details. A colleague asked Edward how long he thought it would take. The arrangement and recording would have to be put together. He tearfully asks Edward to help him with this, since the production company already wants to plan the release. Okay, Edward will take care of it. The coworker is just glowing with happiness. But he also still asked for help in promoting the movie. He was told to at least ask Edward. The nerve knows no bounds. It's not easy for Edward to say, but he said no, since if his father found out, he would be in a lot of trouble. Edward picked up his phone and read the message, then a smile appeared on his face. The coworker doesn't understand why Edward is smiling. He asks him, "Is it a girl?" Lisa asks if he will be home today. Just someone. Yes, it was his girlfriend who wrote. After work, Edward stopped by Lisa's house. What did she want to talk about? Lisa suggests that before starting a war, he should strategize first. Edward doesn't understand why Lisa is so happy. The thing is, Lisa hasn't been happy about much lately. And it's all thanks to Edward. Come to think of it, it's kind of weird that she's happy about it. Edward touched her face with his index finger. Lisa wondered, what was that? Did she think about the fact that maybe she had something on her face? Not at all. Edward just likes the dimples on Lisa's face. He recommended that she smile more often, because when Lisa smiles, she's very pretty. Lisa strategized that when she needed to, Edward should come over and act like her boyfriend. She wondered, is it okay to touch each other? Interesting question. The first thing to figure out is whether her boyfriend Richard slept with that woman. Lisa doesn't know. She's really not 100% sure about that. Edward thinks there's only one reason why people cheat, and it's pretty simple. Lisa doesn't know what he's talking about. If Lisa wants to make him jealous, then she needs to do this. Do what? A touching? No. He thinks she should sleep with him. Is Edward really suggesting that Lisa sleep with him? What if she is? Edward sat closer to Lisa and asked her, "You wouldn't say yes anyway, would you?" Anyway, Edward wanted to help her. So he asked her to call him when she needed him. By the way, he needs some information from Lisa. Just in case. Edward needs to know where and who she works for and all that. He also said that he's taking a break from work right now and then he'll be working at an economic research institute. Lisa is curious to know why Edward stopped practicing music. Oh, is it because of his father? She thought that he would continue to develop in that direction. To be honest, Edward doesn't want to discuss it. Perhaps Lisa had some other questions. For example, perhaps she would like to know how many girlfriends Edward had had and who his first love was. Something like that. Okay, how many girlfriends did he have? Edward wondered. He's never actually counted. Doesn't know exactly how many. Lisa guesses he was definitely Mr. Popularity. What about his first love? It was a girl a couple years older than Edward. He was 18 at the time. But this girl liked another guy. Edward doesn't feel anything for her anymore. They're just friends now. He's getting a little tired. He thinks that's enough for today. Okay, then Lisa will go. He let her know that if she needed anything from him, to let her text him. Lisa never would have thought that Edward's first love was a girl who was older than him. In fact, she had hoped Edward would say her first love was her. Since that's when that incident happened. Okay, Lisa had to get ready for work tomorrow. The next day at the office, Lisa went to her email account and saw an email from Johnny Khan. He replied to Lisa that he had to decline her offers since he no longer had time for her. What an asshole, Lisa thought. Lisa was approached by her supervisor, Maureen Haley, who asked her if she had been able to contact Johnny Khan. Lisa explained that she had corresponded with him, but Maureen Haley asked, "Did he blow you off?" At that point, Lisa involuntarily twitched. The production company said not to contact him directly, but Lisa could stop texting him. It seems he's more sensitive than they thought. Lisa doesn't understand, but why? Is it really all about her? Maureen Haley doesn't know the details since that's all they said. If Lisa is having a negotiation with him, it needs to stop. Okay, Lisa's got it. The supervisor said they need to deal with the publicity schedule and the press conference with the production company now. Maureen Haley also said that Lisa needs to focus completely on the Head Starter project. Lisa will do everything to the best of her ability. After working at the movie theater. Oh, Lisa's wearing heels. She's also wearing glasses. Quite spectacular. Edward asked Lisa if she was sure Richard would be here. Yes, she was sure. Oh wow, she's so pretty. Edward asks Lisa how she knows. It's actually a strange story. Weirder than this. She recently lost her cell phone. Richard had just bought a new one and loaned her his old phone with his number on it. Lisa bought a new phone and put his old phone in her dresser drawer. And now she remembered this phone. Richard's credit card notifications used to come to this phone. Lisa checked and it turned out that the notifications were still coming in. He never unsubscribed from them. It turned out that Richard had bought movie tickets last night. It would probably be a date. But how did she know which movie theater and for what time? After all, it doesn't say so in the notices. In fact, Lisa knows his username and password, so she went to his profile. Richard should be out soon since the movie is almost over. The thing to do is for Richard to accidentally see them and for them to pretend it's a coincidence. It's all about acting like a couple. Since they have no choice, it would be weird if Lisa tried to introduce Edward to Richard as her new boyfriend. He might not believe her. Edward thinks that Lisa is right. But he's not sure Lisa can keep her composure in front of Richard. She asked him not to worry about it. Lisa has already imagined 100 times what it will be like. Okay, fine. They waited for the movie to end and for Richard to appear on the horizon. Edward took a deep breath and thought about what he was doing here. He didn't know how long he'd have to sit up at night while he finished his notes. There were a whole bunch of them to read before Edward got to work at the research institute. I guess he shouldn't have agreed to that stupid offer. Edward still didn't understand why she had chosen him. Lisa grabbed Edward's hand and said, "Look. There they are, see?" Lisa has a look on her face as if she didn't expect to see him here. They are standing a few meters away from Richard and his new girlfriend. By the way, they look pretty cute. Oh, Lisa, what's wrong? Richard is in a great mood. They are joking and smiling amongst themselves. Lisa muttered, his look. Edward doesn't know what she's talking about. At that moment, she squeezed Edward's hand even harder. The thing is, Richard also looked at Lisa when they first fell in love with each other. As if there was nothing around him but her. By the way, yes, the look is very similar. Richard kept his eyes on her. It was as if Lisa was looking at herself and Richard from the outside. Her first meeting with Richard was a bit unusual. Lisa was 23 years old, was having a hard time with a bad breakup and feeling lost. A friend had forced her to go on a blind date. But they were supposed to meet other guys. That very day, Richard asked the cute girl, "Are you Amy Chandler by any chance?" She replied, "No, my name is Lisa Johnson." Lisa stood up and said there must have been a mistake. She turned around and walked out of the cafe. Lisa decided to text and ask where he was. "Oh, I think it's raining." And she forgot her umbrella. Someone opened the umbrella next to her. It turned out to be Richard. He asked Lisa if she was hungry. Lisa hadn't eaten a piece of sushi, but she answered that the sushi was not for her, but for another girl. Richard once again asked, "Is your name Lisa Johnson?" Before Richard left, his friend told him something. If he liked the girl he was going to meet, it was necessary to invite her to the sushi bar he recommended. So that treat was for Lisa. It must not be nice to watch from the sidelines as your future fiancé goes on a date with another girl while glowing with happiness. "Oh," Lisa cried. Edward with his hand began to wipe the tears from her face. Richard and his girlfriend walked into a cafe to have dinner and Lisa and Edward walked in after them. Lisa only glances in their direction. Edward is flipping through the food menu. Lisa is insanely curious to know what Richard is thinking right now. They sit right behind Richard. What's his plan? Lisa looked at Richard's girlfriend. This girl is in a great mood because of the jokes Richard tells her. Lisa thinks that this girl is very cute. She can even imagine Richard's face right now. Probably smiling just like this girl. Edward put his hand on Lisa's arm and addressed her by name. "Oh, what?" Lisa replied. "You know what?" "What?" Edward told her that she wasn't just his friend's older sister. All this time that they've known each other, he had never treated Lisa as an outsider. Never. Lisa shrank. She thought about the fact that Edward was faking it, right? I guess so. She'll see what he does next. Richard hears Lisa and Edward talking. Edward tells her that he's going to be honest with her. He doesn't want to be her temporary boyfriend. At first he thought this was his chance. The girl asks Richard if he is okay. His face suddenly changed so much. Lisa is dumbfounded. What? What is he saying? She's afraid that Richard will expose them. Edward said Lisa. Does she remember what happened a couple days ago? Then she asked him who his first love was. Truth be told, Edward had been in love with Lisa since he was 15 years old. His first love has always been her. Edward really wants Lisa to be happy. Therefore, he asked her to forget about finding a boyfriend for a while. Edward also asked her to forget about getting married. Edward wants Lisa to date him and not Richard. He guarantees to make her happy. Happier than when Lisa was with that bastard. At that moment, Richard jumped up in a frenzy at the words Edward had just spoken to Lisa. Oh no. The waiter apologized. He stated that it was an accident and would bring their order again. Edward replied that it was fine, since they were just about to leave anyway and therefore wouldn't have time to eat. He told Lisa to get ready to go out. Oh, yes. It was still a tense atmosphere, especially because they were sitting so close. Edward opened the front door for Lisa. They walked out of the cafe and into the street. Lisa felt insanely awkward. She asked Edward, "It was all a lie, wasn't it?" Well, Edward asked a counter question. What does she think it was? Lisa replied in tears, "So was it true?" Edward took her hand and said they could argue about it later. For now, he simply suggested that they go ahead. Edward whispered in Lisa's ear that her boyfriend could walk behind her. Lisa got embarrassed. They walk holding hands like a real love couple. So, Lisa, don't date him, date me. Lisa blushed and was embarrassed again. She didn't understand why she was still thinking about it. Edward had warned her that Richard would either call her or want to meet tonight. He also advised Lisa to play her part well. The main thing was not to sit frozen, like in a movie theater. Lisa asked Edward in a frenzy, "So that was it?" Edward shrugged and replied, maybe. Lisa is quite unhappy with the way things have turned out. She got home and got a call from Richard. He asked Lisa what was going on between her and Edward. Lisa replied, "Didn't you hear our conversation?" Yes, he heard the way they were flirting. What? Lisa was surprised. She thinks Richard is ridiculous. He forgot that the only one flirting all the time is himself. Richard realizes he's being a fool. But he really wants to know, what is Lisa going to do about Edward? Lisa says 3 months, like you said. She is going to date Edward for exactly 3 months. Lisa accepts Richard's offer. Oh, okay. But they mustn't give up on the wedding preparations. It's going to be just like they planned. Lisa tells Richard that she has to go now. She put the phone down and cried a lot. Lisa wonders why everything is so complicated. The next day morning, Mom told Lisa that Edward had left his phone at their house. She asked her to go to Edward's house and give him his phone since Kevin had gone to the bazaar. Lisa rang the doorbell. Edward opened the front door. Lisa is so cute. Edward thought she missed her boyfriend by now since she came here. Funny joke. Lisa tries to act nonchalant and told Edward that he forgot his phone at their apartment. She handed the phone to him. Edward takes advantage of the moment and grabs Lisa's hand and told her to come into the apartment. It turns out Edward had a surprise for Lisa. But in order to get the gift, there was something she needed to do. Edward dragged her along. Very interesting. Oh, Lisa is surprised. Edward showed her his workplace. She looked around the room. Edward turned his head in her direction and smiled sweetly. Lisa can't wait to find out what the gift is. Edward would play it for her now. He turned on a music track on his laptop. It's all quite unexpected for Lisa. Rhythmic music plays. Pretty good. But most importantly, Edward is about to start playing the piano. Sounds like a very cool gift to me. I'm sure no one has ever played the piano for Lisa before. Edward's on a roll. Lisa has such a surprised look on her face. You can see that Edward is skillful with the musical instrument. He told her in confidence that she was the first person to hear the song. Edward asked Lisa if she liked the song. She is simply amazed. She thinks it was pretty good. Edward thinks that Lisa apparently has no taste in music. You can tell he's not happy. Lisa thought about how to admit the truth. This music was so good it almost made her heart stop, but she's too shy. Lisa can't tell Edward what she really thinks. She couldn't take her eyes off those fingers caressing the keys. Frankly speaking, Lisa's heart even started to race. She was enjoying it immensely. Edward turned to her and said that was better. He got up from his chair. and walked closer to Lisa. Oh my god. What's going to happen now?